Alright, what's up guys? It's Michael and Scott here with FudgeMuppet's latest video.
We're back.
Yeah, the location of Hammerfell.
In reference to Elder Scrolls 6, we'll be going through a lot of topics that we didn't get to fully explore in the Elder Scrolls 6 video.
We're milking the shit out of it.
Yeah, and also in response to you guys and so on, but this is the location of Hammerfell and why we think it would be a good idea. And we'll sort of go through other locations and...
You know, talk about the plot and the factions and what could happen if Bethesda chose, say, Blackmarsh.
Yeah.
But today we're looking at Hammerfell.
So, plot-wise, it makes sense as it's an independent state and they aren't part of the Empire anymore. And they're fighting against the Thalmor, and, you know, they could have a conflict escalate with the Thalmor once again. They're not part of the White Gold Concordate or anything. And there's also the interesting factions, the Forebears and the Crowns. They're two larger factions of Hammerfell, the Forebears being the descendants of the Regatta settlers from Hammerfell, the sort of warrior class, and they're sort of more open to, what's the opposite of fundamentalism? They're not conservative, they're anti-conservative, they're all like open to trade and so on, but the Crowns are sort of the really culture heavy. They just want to be exactly like they were when they were over in...
it's like extreme left-wing and extreme right-wing.
Yeah.
It's just very varying political opinions.
Yeah, so there'd be an interesting conflict and story plot points and so on with them. Yeah.
It's also could sort of revolve around it could uniting them as such, or also choosing one side over the other, but of course the main enemy would be the Thalmor. Don't think it's too smart to have the option to join the Thalmor, especially within a Hammerfell-focused game. It'd also be the first game you begin in that's not run by the Empire, so you don't start, obviously, in a wagon with the Empire about to cut off your head, or with Imperial guards around you. It's the two factions Scott talked about. It's just fresh. So the other thing with that is new guilds as well outside of the Empire. So you wouldn't just have your Mages Guild, your Thieves Guild, your Fighters Guild, your Dark Brotherhood. You could, but there'd also be other guilds.
They need to stay on the Thalmor, I think. They've introduced a big sort of enemy, and so on. The next game really needs to sort of flesh it out. Like they were planning to do it, sounded like originally in DLC, but they never sort of came through with it. So I think Hammerfell would be perfect to sort of flesh out the rest of the story with the Thalmor and the conflict. So
yeah,
but
factions. Speaking of factions,
factions in Hammerfell, they're known to Hammerfell's known to have a lot of knightly orders and so on, and the game could explore a very sort of unknown god called Ebenarm, who's also the Black Knight. He's a god of war.
He's just one of those weird gods as well that aren't part of the nine, and they're not a Daedric god. He's just sort of there as...
And they have like
god.
all the fighters guilds and so on in have like big mosaics of him, especially in Hammerfell and so on, and there's sort of a specific reference of him in Hammerfell. So they could really flesh him out, because he's a god that there's not much spoken about him in the other games.
Is it actually the Fighters Guild in Hammerfell, or would it be another one, as in how Skyrim had companions?
I think there's I was reading stuff, there was a mention of a citadel of Ebenarm, but there was
it
specifically said Fighters Guild.
Yeah, there's a presence, but I'm sure there's more, and like we said, new factions, you will have more.
But then there's like Alec here too, as a guild and so on. There's lots of other sort of, instead of like we mentioned in the Elder Scrolls 6 video, not just have one warrior guild.
Give me some obstacles.
Not just have one warrior guild, but a few that maybe have, you know, varying ideologies and so on.
Yeah. The other thing is Thieves Guild. There'd be guilds like that, but obviously new. And one of the most important things regarding guilds and also sort of role-playing is magic and mage guilds. Now, like I wrote here, in Skyrim, there was a really, okay, we don't like magic that much, we don't trust outsiders, they had that sort of feel. But then you've got this huge College of Winterhold, visible to everyone, like, look, we're the College of Winterhold. It's very talked about, it's controversial, whereas in Hammerfell, it'd be almost, it's not controversial because it's set and done, we don't like magic. It's just, no magic. So with the Mages Guild in that game, the way I can envision that is set up how the Thieves Guild is set up in Oblivion. So you have to find your way into the guild, you have to hear about it. It's sort of, even though they're not bad as such, it's a very like, secret sort of affair. It's like,
Yeah, so there might be like sort of caves even sort of just outside the city where their faction headquarters is or so on. And they sort of act in secrecy because of, because they're scrutinized for magic and so on.
And the way you join it, you'd have, like I said, you have to hear it from someone else. But it's sort of adventure of its own. It just cuts out what I really didn't like about Skyrim, especially because it just puts it in your miscellaneous objectives. It's just like, you should seek out Winterhold College. Like, it's just, no, don't. They're forcing it down your throat. And with this, it's more fun because you feel like you
Sort it out.
You made your own way there. You chose your own path. The other thing is with the magic, it takes on there are new types of magic that could possibly happen, specifically sand magic. So it's sort of interesting that at the end of the Dragonborn DLC, they introduced ash magic and they sort of elaborated on wind. So it would sort of take on a similar feel. So you could have like, say, a sand cloak for destruction, or you could have like, you know how they had the, what was it, ash shell?
Yeah.
Like paralysis, sand paralysis. The other thing I can imagine, and this is just very detailed and over the top, but you know how they had the flaming familiars in Skyrim that you shoot them, they explode? Think of it like this: you shoot the sand and like almost like the Transformers. I forget its the name of the scorpion. Never mind. Whatever, the big metal scorpion thing, comes along under the ground, jumps up, big scorpion made of sand, smashes into the enemy, it explodes, and then deals the damage. So it's sort of a ranged conjuration spell. No, it's just more possibilities.
Yeah.
More possibilities.
Another good point is customization and
a lot of the stuff seen in Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, would be that. Like we mentioned like tattoos and piercings and so on. That's really culturally relevant to the Red Guards too. So it's just the perfect place to introduce it as a new game. I mean, it was introduced in Elder Scrolls Online, but yeah, and
it's not the same.
Other thing too about the landscape. Yes, Hammerfell was in Elder Scrolls Online, but it was still that sort of cartoony, like, kind of look. But you'd have, like, that really gritty, sort of realistic, like Skyrim, but all deserts, a brand new diverse landscape, and there'd be, scorpions and snakes and all this kind of stuff, and it would look really gritty, and big sandstorms and so on. It'd just be a brand new, fresh location.
Yeah, the other thing is that we saw in Skyrim was Dwemer Ruins. Now, there are heaps of Dwemer Ruins in Hammerfell, so if Bethesda wanted to make a plot line tying in with what Scott said before about plots, a plot line revolving around something new, the Dwemer, their disappearance and sort of their past would be a really interesting topic.
And they could always reintroduce, so we talked about older characters, they could reintroduce Yagram Bagan, I think I pronounced it right, the last living Dwemer, the big fat guy, and the Dwemer spider, like he could sort of...
he was in Morrowind.
Yeah, and he could sort of come in with that story. Nostalgic characters.
Yeah, and talking about customization, the apparel, the clothing, if they wanted to alter the system, speaking of Morrowind, having more slots, because Skyrim really took away a lot of, like, even, like, what were they, greaves? Like, you just lost your 5 pieces of armor.
It's all greaves, cuirass, it was all one part.
Yeah, not just armor. There'd be even more, so you have like things for capes and cloaks and sort of like more wrap headgears.
Like even if they worked like the mods, if it was just like you got your armor piece or your clothing or whatever, but then there were like attachments.
Extra. Yeah, attachments. Say like, you can limited amount as well, like 3 or 4 attachments, not even 1 or 2 attachments. But it just fits in with the culture of them being in the they're in a sandstorm environment, which will be interesting. But it's immersive. You don't want to walk around and. Put it this way, I don't want to have iron armor and they've just Hammerfelled it, so to speak, and they've put cloaks on iron armor. Dwarven armor has cloaks on it. You should have the armor and then be able to put cloaks and other sort of pieces of apparel on top of that.
Yeah. And also creatures like I briefly mentioned before, like giant snakes and then the beetles and stuff and scorpions like there were in Elder Scrolls Online, but they could really elaborate. Like, how cool would it be with all the, it'd be well above the capabilities of MMO. Like you're fighting a giant snake, and it's a bit more visceral than just MMO sort of going.
Yeah, and it's as well like in Skyrim as well. Like there's just a lot of when the dragons would always appear. It's like, oh yeah, the music comes on, oh another dragon. They could do that with lots of different sort of boss type creatures, so to speak. Like you said, with a big sandworm, the music changes. It's just a random occurrence. If you're in a desert, the sand sort of starts moving, and then a big worm or snake thing comes out of the ground, and then you have to battle that. There might be specific ways to kill it. It goes back in the sand, comes up somewhere else. Like when it loses a certain amount of health, there's more options, and even things. You gotta look at it like this way. Skyrim has such a diverse amount of different enemies in terms of you have the big friendly mammoths. Imagine what they'd have in Hammerfell, replacing things like that, replacing the little things like squirrels and goats and...
Sick little thought too. Camels.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Instead of horses, have camels. That'll just be a nice little...
Camels are great for survival, makes a lot of sense.
It'd just be a nice little Hammerfell, touch. And you could decorate your camels with like carpet kind of things.
Yeah, it's more immersive.
There you go, have magic carpet for the Mages Guild.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, final point. Skyrim was the only game where you were, straight from the beginning, you were an important person. You were the Dragonborn and so on.
We mentioned it in ES6, you're just thrown into a role.
So Hammerfell, it would be great to just sort of start, you just start blank slate, you're not anyone, you've got to earn your title, you've got to earn your reputation, you've got to become someone, not just born someone.
Yeah, it's sort of going in with that theme of make your own path, don't follow the path that they've made for you.
Yeah.
That was pretty deep.
Yeah, nice. Bit of foresight in the heart. That about wraps it up for Hammerfell, I guess. What we want you guys to do is just, in all these videos, just lots of discussion and sort of questions, and
we want to talk more and
about Elder Scrolls 6.
We're going to be making, like I think I said, don't know if I did, so I'll say it again. We're going to be making location videos for everything.
Yeah.
So there'll be High Rock, Shivering Isles, not Shivering Isles, Sunset Isles. So just tell us wherever, whatever you want next, and we'll get on top of that.
But yeah, these will sort of be coming out frequently. I don't really no particular dates, but as many as we can sort of
not in 2-month gaps.
Yeah.
And we're making a Q&A, another one, and we'll probably continue to. We've had a lot of not emails, inboxes, whatever you want to call it.
Asking for them.
Please make more Q&As. So, how about this? You ask us some interesting questions, we'll make a Q&A.
Yeah.
And that wraps it up for Hammerfell. See you later.
Alright.